I want to read something for you. And this is sort of an illustration of God's sovereignty working in my life. And just kind of, I've got some pictures to go along with this, so it helps kind of clarify this illustration. Several years ago, a situation occurred that illustrates this point that God's counsel overrides our devices. We were in need of a relatively inexpensive minivan. Now, for those of you who don't know, I love eBay, almost to the point of excess. I have to be careful. I used to criticize women for being so consumed with shopping. But when I realized I could get so many toys for cheap on eBay, I got in touch with my shopping side, not my feminine side, as you can see. But I've gotten some great deals. Of course, after having experienced the Midwest, I have my sights set on a different toy. So anyway, I found what appeared to be a nice minivan located across the country, but it would be worth the plane tickets to go get the van. Well, both our boys could fly for free, so we took off to the airport. By the way, that one in the back is Truman with long hair. It's a real hassle traveling with two boys, ages 1 and 2. I got stopped at a security checkpoint. It's kind of funny that Doug would bring that up. It's like, anyway. Chicago's a scary city. A man has to protect himself and his family. We finally got on the plane. And soon we were off to Chicago. Well, we got to our destination only to find out that the van was a lemon. Just say no to lemons. I was obviously disappointed. So I asked the man if he was selling the minivan that he used to pick us up from the airport instead. He said, sure, for $1,000 more. It was worth it. We drove the van back to Colorado, got ourselves a nice new minivan. That was in August. I thought, wow, I planned on buying one van, and this new one was even better. Heck, that little kink in my plans actually worked out for best. So I thought. About 4 months after we brought it back, Carrie was driving the van with Austin in his car seat. As she was going around a curve, she turned around to tend to Austin, accidentally got in the dirt, overcorrected, and rolled the van. All my plans were going so well. She was in ICU for 2 to 3 days with a dislocated hip and a bruised lung. Thank God Austin was virtually unscathed. I got to the scene of the accident because one of our neighbors happened to be following Carrie when she rolled the van. He comes back and says, your wife's been in an accident. And I go, is it bad? And he goes, it's bad. And I'm like, my goodness, she had Austin, I wasn't even thinking about her. Yes, I was, honey, I was. I was thinking about you, I swear. But I was in my coveralls, I was doing some work out in the garage, and man, I drove out there, and I see the van, and I'm like, oh, they're dead, or something. I mean, the most horrible thoughts. It was just about a mile from our house. So I see her, she was ejected from the van, and she's sitting there, and I see her screaming, so I know she's okay, right? Because, she's conscious, she can feel, so at least she hadn't broken her back or her neck. But I could tell she was in pain, so I was like, where's my son, Austin? And they said, he's in the ambulance, because the ambulance had already gotten there. So I go in, open it up, and there's Austin just kind of whimpering in his car seat with a little nick, because all the glass blew in, a little nick on his forehead. He was just kind of, can you imagine? It's like, wow, that's pretty intense. I've never been in a rollover, You've done something I haven't done, buddy. Anyway, I was just glad that he and Carrie were still alive. I acknowledge God's hand in the matter. Obviously, God was working. My plans were not going as planned. But it sure seemed like a bizarre turn of events. Was there any benefit? Absolutely. After making the insurance claim, they gave us a check for $7,000, more than what Blue Book was on it. Go figure. At first I thought, hey, better call the insurance company so I wouldn't get busted for fraud because they said the odometer said 17,000 instead of 70,000. We told them, and they said they had to go by the odometer. So I'm like, rock on. So a trip to Chicago, a rolled van, a bruised lung, and dislocated hip later, we were $7,000 richer. Though I'm sure Carrie would rather be poor without the bruised lung and dislocated hip. All that to say God had very different plans than I had. Yet his plans have taught us much about his purpose for good in our lives. Well, Jonah had plans, and he says he arose to flee from the presence of the Lord. In Psalm 139, we see the presence and providence of God, the overruling providence of God. Where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend up into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in the grave, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall your hand lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall hide me, even the night shall be light about me. Yes, the darkness cannot hide from you, O God, but the night shines as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to you. For you have possessed my reins. That's just talking about my inner workings. You have covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My substance was not hid from you. When I was made in secret, curiously designed in the lowest parts of the earth, you saw my substance being incomplete. And in your book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned when as yet there were none of them. God had plans for Jonah. This is David talking. God had plans for Jonah. Even Jeremiah says, man, you knew me. You had ordained me from my mother's womb. Proverbs 20, verse 24, and this is hard. This is difficult. Man's goings are of the Lord. How then can a man understand his own way? Isn't that trippy? Imagine what Jonah was going through. He's sitting there going, what's up? What is going on? I was planning on escaping the presence of God, fleeing to Tarshish, where I might make a little bit of dough and just live a life of comfort. And now all of a sudden, someone's chasing after me. Jeremiah 10:23, O Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man who walks to direct his steps. So often we think, when we go off to do something, when we have great plans, or we're going to go apply for a job, or we're going to, go get ourselves that degree we've always wanted, and all of a sudden, we get pregnant. Not we, but I mean, I've heard that story so many times, of girls who have, they wanted to go on and get these great degrees, and they get married, next thing you know, they're pregnant. Well, I was just a few hours short of my degree. And many people say, oh, bummer. That's what the world usually likes to say. Oh, bummer. And yet, the greatest thing is given to you in the gift of a child. Psalm 139 continued, how precious are your thoughts of me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I should count them, they are more in number than the sand. Have you ever thought about how much God thinks about you? Have you ever wondered if God is thinking about you when you're going through the worst trial of your life? The Bible says his thoughts are continual of us, and they're as the sand of the sea. He is always thinking about you.